What's up, kit and cats? So, as you saw in the first clip, we are here today for a little physique slash prep update. I kind of just wanted to keep you guys, you know, in the know about what's happening in my prep and hope that some of the things that I talk about are of use to you and of some value to you. So, let's just get into it. Right now, weighing in at 132, so as I mentioned in previous videos, old stage weights have been between 135 and 136, so we're already below that, which is a good sign, and there's some steady downtrends happening in weight, so that's a very good sign to me, especially since I have plenty of time left. The photo shoot is in about 3.5 weeks, and then there will be spring shows to follow, so plenty of time left to come in for actual shows. Oh, real quick, everybody always asks about these hoodies. These are the Donuts and Deadlifts crew necks. Yeah, it's my favorite. This is my favorite sweatshirt of all time. I'll put my discount code up here, but yeah, I love these sweatshirts. Super random. Oh well. So let's talk supplements. Everybody always asks me about the supplements that I take, and I've been really liking this prep for a multitude of reasons, but one of which being that I'm taking the least amount of supplements that I've ever taken during this prep. So I'll go ahead and run through what I currently use. So I will start with my basics, the things that I take year-round, every day, prep, not prep, whatever. First thing that I've talked about ad nauseum, it seems like, is liquid fish oil. Like I said, I've talked about that a lot. I don't need to go into detail with that here. Creatine, I take creatine year-round. I don't take the PE Science variety. I do take the kind that I started taking when I first started taking creatine. I just prefer that. I really like that. So I don't switch. That's just a personal preference. And then third staple is protein powder. To me, it's kind of a supplement, kind of not, because it's more like a macro source for me. Like, you could substitute it with something like chicken or egg whites or things of that nature. But then there's obviously like the research that, you know, oh, whey protein after a workout, yada, yada, yada. But those are the three. So fish oil, creatine, and protein powder, those are the basics. All day, every day, not exactly, well, not like, yeah. Every day, year-round, prep, off-season, whatever. And then next, the occasional high volume. I just kind of like take it when I feel like it. And then I drink coffee in the morning, so that's not a supplement, but that's like my caffeine source. So that is supplements. So I always jot stuff down when I expect something to be a long video because I know that I ramble forever. So next, let's talk about strength. Strength has maintained extremely well throughout this prep, and that has been very, very like pleasing to me, I guess would be the best word, pleasing. So over halfway through, and strength has maintained pretty steadily, and the reason that this is a big deal, not just for me, but for anyone while you're prepping, strength maintenance is generally a good indicator of how much muscle you are retaining. So and this is why I favor longer preps. If you cut down slowly and you give yourself enough time, you're probably going to maintain your strength a little bit better as you lean down. When you're trying to lose fat, fat loss does not occur in a vacuum. When you lose fat, you also lose some percentage of muscle tissue along with it. So if your strength stays high, but you're still dropping in weight, that's a pretty good indicator that you're losing a good amount of fat and not necessarily a ton of muscle. Obviously, you lose some as you do it, but again, strength maintenance is a good indicator of muscle tissue retention. And it's also just a good psychological motivator. Nobody likes going into the workout. I mean, I guess you could say that. Going into the gym, you know, not being able to move anything heavy, not being able to get a pump, not being able to do anything. Nobody likes that. So the fact that my strength has stayed high has been a good motivator for me. Obviously, strength dwindles at some point. It's just inevitable. But the longer you can prevent that, or the longer you can minimize that, the better. Let's talk about the body, the physique. My little, stop it. So in terms of physique, just a real quick thing that I want to touch on because Nick has said this to me and it just resonated really well. I have gone flat a couple of times, but that is part of the process. So when you go flat, you can't really see, I can tell in my personal body when I'm going flat, first by my abs. When my abs flatten out and they don't really pop, like that's kind of how I know I'm starting to go flat. And and then you have a harder time getting a pump in the gym. But that is part of the process, and what Nick told me is kind of like a phrase that they throw around is go flat or go on stage fat. Is like I don't know if that's the exact verbiage, but you must what I'm trying to get at here is you must contextualize during your prep. You might be flat in your prep, but I would much rather be flat a couple times during prep, but fill back out to get on stage instead of not going, like being too afraid of going flat and then ending up not coming in as lean as you need to. You can always fill back out, you can always replenish glycogen a little more, you can always, you know, there have to be ebbs and flows, so if you go flat, you just have to bring it back up and it's waves. But I would rather go flat a couple times than be fat on stage. And by fat, I don't mean like obese, it's just a phrase, calm down. The stage is what matters, so if you're flat one time during prep or a couple times during prep, that is okay as long as you're not flat on stage, obviously. Alright, sorry, the camera overheated, so I had to take a little break. And I overheated because these lights are warm, so take time. So, let's talk posing. I finally went back to posing class. Actually not posing class because I haven't started yet, but I did a one-on-one with my posing coach Monty, and it was really awesome because I came in, and he hasn't seen me since collegiate. I came in and I was wearing sweats and a hoodie. He's like, wow, you already look tiny, like in the good way, not you look skinny, but like the you're lean way. And Monty is very honest. He's very critical. He is an NPC judge, and he's just the kind of person that gives it to you straight, so he's not going to be like, oh yeah, you look great, when he's really like, oh god, she's got a lot of work to do in this amount of time. Because my physique does look a little bit different than it has in past shows, we did change some things up in my posing routine, so I'm very excited to continue working on that. And then also, keep an eye out because I am like, Monty, my posing coach, my posing team, they hold an annual symposium every single year. It's not just posing, it talks about just about everything you could think of for competing in terms of prep, supplements, suits, tans, hair, makeup, and then obviously posing. They hold an annual symposium, and I'm actually helping with the posing class this year. So if you are in the area, you know, like Columbus, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Dayton area, and you want to come to the symposium, I will keep you guys updated on when it is. But yeah, I will be helping out at that, so I'm very excited. I've gone to it ever since I started competing, and I wouldn't miss it. So let's talk diet. Everyone's favorite. So I just want to preface this by saying that I do not share my macros with people, and I do not share my MyFitnessPal diary with people for a couple of reasons, and I could rant about this for a really long time, but basically, TLDR, I don't want someone to look at my macros and like my body and correlate like, oh, these are her macros and I want to look like this, so this is what I need to do, because that is not the case. So dieting has been pretty steady. Really only made like one big cut before this past weekend, but then this past weekend I sent my update to Nick, and he's like, I think we're in a really good spot, so we can keep with what we're doing and, you know, hope things continue to go the way they have been, or we can push a little bit. And he was like, if you feel comfortable with it, la 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 la. And I was like, yeah, let's push. Like, I miss that prep feeling. I want to feel the grind. I just want to feel it. I feel like a lot of times in fitness, especially with females, I listen to a lot of podcasts with bodybuilding, and I've noticed that male bodybuilders talk all the time about, oh, I had to get really low carb for a show, like under 100 grams, under 50 grams of carbs, like, and nobody bats an eye for the males. But if you say, like, if you're a female and you're like, yeah, I had to go below like 50 grams of carbs to get on stage, people are like, ugh. So basically what we've been doing this past week is a carb cycle with a couple days of keto, a medium day, keto, a high day, repeat. So on those keto days, and I don't really know if that would be the correct term because I'm not super well versed in ketogenic diets, but essentially on those low days, my only carbs come from vegetables, because that's all there is room for. Fats come up on those days, and then protein stays constant. But I want to contextualize this because, and it's essentially no carb outside of vegetables. People hear girls, well actually, and part of my problem with this is the male bodybuilders talk about this all the time, but then nobody talks about it with females. And I think part of this, and I asked Nick to like shed some of his light on this when I sent him an email. I feel like with females, people don't talk about it. People are afraid to talk about it. coaches and the athletes themselves. I feel like coaches are afraid to push girls to that point if need be. I personally feel like a lot of coaches are afraid to push their clients to particularly female clients, to push their athletes to a low calorie or a low carbohydrate level during a prep situation, because they don't want to be labeled as a bad coach, and there's all the talk about metabolic damage and yada yada yada. And I feel like athletes, especially with social media, we've perpetuated the idea that if your coach takes you too low carb, they're a bad coach, you should leave them, and your metabolism is going to be screwed, and you're going to have an eating disorder and all these crazy things. And I think it's gotten blown up in an acute time frame, which is what this is. An acute time frame will not hurt you in terms of, metabolic rate and all of that stuff. You can reverse out of that. You just have to be intelligent about it. The problem comes when coaches put their clients on extremely low carb or extremely low calorie diets for prolonged periods of time. And that is where a smart coach comes into play. Not only one that can take you through the diet cycle and can take you to those lower levels, but who can intelligently get you out of them once the contest prep season is over. Even as a female, it's not just the men that can go low carb, and it's not just the men that need to go low carb. I think there's also this misconception that if you're a female, particularly in the bikini division, you don't have to work as hard, you don't have to diet as hard, which to a degree is somewhat true, because you don't have to get down to those extreme levels of leanness with crazy separation and striation and all of that, but you still gotta grind some stuff out a little bit, And again, I asked Nick to shed some light on this, so a lot of this is coming from that discussion. But something that he brought up and that I personally agree with is another thing with the athlete, not necessarily the coach, but with the athlete. Are you just afraid to work a little bit? Are you just afraid to have to grind a little bit? Having low energy or just, not feeling a workout one day does not mean you have metabolic damage. It just means you feel kind of crappy one day and you have to actually work. God forbid. Yes, it's great to feel great during prep, and yes, it sucks to feel not great, but it's gonna happen regardless of if you're prepping or not. That's just how it is. So you can't be afraid to have to grind through some stuff. You chose to compete because, I'm guessing, because you want to push yourself and because you want to do well on stage. If you're not willing to push yourself, you're probably not gonna do that well, and you shouldn't. If you're not willing to get uncomfortable, I personally, this might be a bit abrasive, but if you're not willing to get uncomfortable, you don't deserve to do well. And that's just my personal opinion. If you try to go too quickly, if you try to diet too quickly, or if you try to drop, make too drastic of a drop, then that's another thing that causes problems. Your systems will downregulate a lot more intensely, I would say is the right word. I don't know. But your nervous system is gonna be like, the heck is happening? You'll be more stressed, you'll have poor training sessions. So if that's how your entire prep is, or if you try to do too much too soon, then you're not gonna get the response you want, and your body's just gonna be like, no, we quit, we're done. But so it has to be gradual, and that's again why I favor longer preps, so you give yourself enough time. You have to have those ebbs and flows. Nick calls them phases of push and pull. So you push for a little bit and then you pull back, and you push and you pull back. You have to have that kind of wave-like progression. But work is just part of the game, whether you're pushing or you're pulling or you're in an off season. Work is a part of the game. And with contest prep specifically, with anything, I guess you can't just do this, but with contest prep, you can't just sit and play with your dick for 20 weeks or more and expect something to happen. You can't just sit there I'm prepping, yay. No, you have to actually be active and present and proactive about where you want to be, how you want to look, how you want to place. You have to have that mindset that, okay, whatever we've got to do, we got to do. Again, with you overheating, maybe it's because I'm getting heated, I don't know. It's contest prep. You're gonna have to diet. Your macros are gonna get cut down, and it's how you approach it too. If people get macro cuts and act like they've lost a family member, it's fine. It's temporary. You will get them back one day. Take that energy that you have into like lamenting over your lost macros, and put that in to your prep so that you can kick some serious ass. That's the whole point. Whine less, do more. So that's not to be like abrasive or elitist, like I'm not better than anyone else for going low carb, I'm not better than anyone else for like not complaining as much. Like, it just makes things easier on yourself. And like even when Nick sent me that carb cycle, I was like, okay, cool. But like I went into it with the attitude of it's not a huge deal, like it's just different. It's not, you know, good, bad, plus, minus, it's just different. It's just what we have to do right now. And honestly, it hasn't been that bad. Like, the most inconvenient part of it was just planning it, like planning out like the macros in the day and everything in MyFitnessPal, like making sure everything was right. But once you do it for a couple days, you're used to it. And like even the days of, like I felt fine, still feel fine. I'm still feisty, I'm still sassy, I still have great workouts. So I still feel fine. And like it's not something that you need to be afraid of. Like don't fear the low carb, like don't fear the prep, like don't fear the cardio, like it's gonna be fine. You're gonna be okay. But yeah, you can't expect to not have to do some stuff during prep. Like that's the thing, and I want there to be more discussion about females and contest prep in all divisions, not just bikini, but figure, physique, all that stuff. Because if the male bodybuilders can talk about, you know, how they have to go low, how they have to do this, how they have to do that, we as the females need to do more talking about that as well. It's not a bad thing to have to push. You just have to do it intelligently and come out of it intelligently. But yes, I just feel like as females, we need to talk about this more. And just as bodybuilders in general, we need to talk about everything, all genders, all divisions, all that jazz. So that is where I will wrap it up for this video. Giveaway details will be coming soon. I've got some stuff put together, but I don't have time to include it in this video because it's already gonna be really long and I don't wanna do that to you. So that has been it for today, our little contest prep update, and I guess dieting. We rambled about that for like a long period of time. Alright, thank you so much for watching. If you've made it through this whole video, you're a bomb. You're probably doing cardio and don't really have a choice, you're locked in. But I love you guys so much. Have a marvelous Thursday, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!